Disclaimer. The content on this YouTube channel includes true stories, some of which are based on real life facts, and some are fiction. We do not claim ownership of any of the stories presented on this channel. We have sourced stories from various online and offline sources, and we have made reasonable efforts to ensure that the stories are accurate and reliable. However, we cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the information presented. The stories presented on this channel are for entertainment purposes only, and any reliance on the stories is strictly at your own risk. We do not accept any responsibility for any loss, injury, or damage that may arise from your use of the stories or any information presented on this channel. Please note that the stories presented on this channel may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to Demonic Diaries, the YouTube channel where we explore the darkest corners of the human mind. Join me, your host, as I delve into the pages of terrifying tales and haunting stories. From the depths of hell to the darkest depths of the human psyche, we'll be your guide through the most bone-chilling and spine-tingling stories that will keep you up at night. So buckle up and prepare to be scared, because on Demonic Diaries, every story has a dark side. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified of new videos. Let's get started. Number 1. Rumors have been circulating in my hometown about a young girl who befriends teenagers with pools. She would become close to the family and then wait for the perfect moment to murder the entire family. She is calculated and cold. She waits until the right moment when the family is close to the pool, using the pool, and then she would kill the entire family poolside, leaving a literal pool of blood. It started off as a story passed on among the people of my town, stories they would tell their kids, conversations they would have at work, discussion they would have during casual visits, and so it goes. The description has changed noticeably over the last year when it all started. Some would say it was a mere orphan child who no one knew that befriended the children at parks. Others would say it was a grown woman who was hired as a nanny. Some even said it was a ghost. Who knows? The description was similar. It was always someone short with long blonde hair. They called her the poolside killer. I work in the electronic repair field. Basically, I fix air conditioners, swimming pool pumps, electric motors, TVs. Pretty much anything electronic I can fix. This means I get called often to go to someone's house to repair items. There are a couple of families that see me more often as they like the service I provide, so they always call me over the slightest repair job, and I would go there and do it fast. My whole world was rocked the day I was called to repair the electric fence of a family I am well familiar with. We had been working together for quite a few years now, and they always called me to repair something. We will call them the O'Neill family for sake of protecting their identity or what is left of it. This was the same month where the folks in town had been stirred up and left talking among themselves about the legend of the poolside killer. I never really took this seriously, just like in all horror movies. No one thinks any of these things are real until it is too late. They rationalize until they can tell themselves the perfect lie in order to avoid these realities. I was repairing the fence that Wednesday afternoon. It was quite a long day, a difficult job for a change, and it took me all day to repair that fence. I had to take the whole wiring apart and redo it. The money was good, so I went with it. The kids had come home from school. It was a boy who was in his early teens and a girl who was around the age of 8 to 10. Living with them in the house were Mrs. O'Neill. She was in her 40s, and Mr. O'Neill was in his 50s. The mother of Mrs. O'Neill was staying with them in the granny flat. She was quite old at the time already. To continue my story, the daughter brought home a new friend. Surely you can see where this goes. The friend was a little girl. She was blonde and looked to be around the age of 10 to 12. The exact position I was at this moment was at the far end of the yard. The yard was sizable, and I was at the far opposite end. From where I was standing, repairing the corner of the fence, I could see right across the yard to where the pool was located. The pool was right outside a sliding door located at the back part of the house. The two openings were on the back corner where the gate is to the outside and the entrance from the sliding door. I could see through the gate from where I was working. Another very true thing I didn't realize about horror movies is how we freeze up due to fear and can't look away or move, despite what anyone could rationalize while not having been a witness. I saw them all come out. Seems like they wanted to have a swim. So, the entire family other than the granny was outside. They were taking pictures and getting ready to swim. I saw the friend stand closest to Mr. O'Neill at the time, and everything moved in slow motion. After I noticed the small blade in her hand that she was hiding from everyone, I flinched as she repeatedly stabbed Mr. O'Neill. I could almost feel the pain of her slicing him. Her cutting is so fast. It happened so quick that no one knew what to do until it was too late. I must have blacked out a large portion of the event, as the moment I remember I heard Mrs. O'Neill screaming and running toward me. I saw the little girl. Her eyes locked with mine, blood on her face. She started moving towards us. Mrs. O'Neill ran and so did I. The little girl followed. Mrs. O'Neill found a place to hide in the house, while the little girl seemed intent on hurting me. She followed me. After seeing what she did to the others, I didn't want to underestimate her and believed that I could just go and retrain her. No thank you, I want to live. So, I ran. I don't know why I didn't just leave the yard. I assume it's because I really didn't want Mrs. O'Neill to be murdered too. That's so hazy. I ran to the other side of the house and jumped over the fence to hide in the little courtyard they had. I had just thought I outran her when I turned around and she was right behind me. Everything went black. I woke up in the hospital 72 hours later, confused and in pain. Apparently, I had barely made it alive. The little girl who had killed everyone hadn't known about the granny who was peacefully napping in the pool house. She heard the screams, called the police and was intercepted tight before mutilating me. Number 2. Deep in the heart of a dark, foreboding forest, lay the forgotten town where my family resided in a house that appeared abandoned for years. My wife, Samantha, and I were loving parents to our son Ethan. But our happiness was short-lived as Ethan began to change in ways we could never have imagined. At first, we thought it was just a phase, but soon we realized something was seriously wrong with our son. Ethan's once smiling face was now twisted into a grotesque, sinister grin that sent shivers down our spines. His lips tore and bled, and his teeth turned black, as if he was possessed by an unseen force. The atmosphere in our house grew heavier with each passing day, as if a malevolent presence had seeped into the very walls. Samantha and I were struggling to find a way to help our son Ethan. Despite visiting doctors, therapists, and even consulting with shamans, nothing seemed to alleviate his torment. His once cheerful demeanor had transformed into a sinister grin that seemed to infect his very soul. We felt like we had exhausted all options. Then, our friend Ben suggested speaking to the town's historian. He jokingly mentioned the possibility of the house being haunted, but we initially dismissed the idea. We had never considered the possibility of a curse or the supernatural, and we were hesitant to believe it could be true. But as we continued to struggle with Ethan's affliction, we became increasingly desperate for answers. It was only then that we decided to follow Ben's advice and speak to the historian. To our surprise, the historian revealed a bone-chilling tale. Our home had been built on cursed land, tainted for centuries since a young boy accused of witchcraft was brutally executed by the townsfolk. With his dying breath, the boy had cursed the land, promising that families who dared to live there would experience unfathomable suffering. It was a horrifying revelation, but at least we finally had an answer to Ethan's torment. Now, we prayed that the historian could help us find a way to break the curse before it was too late. The historian recommended that we speak to a medium she knew who was known for her ability to communicate with spirits. Although we were initially skeptical, we were willing to try anything to help our son. Samantha and I sought the help of the mysterious medium, who agreed to perform a seance to break the curse. As we sat in the dimly lit room, the medium began to chant, and the temperature plummeted. Suddenly, Ethan's grin disappeared, replaced by an expression of pure dread. The medium whispered, "It's too late. The curse has claimed your son. There is no hope." Ethan's grin returned, now accompanied by a spine-chilling screech that threatened to bring the house down. His eyes turned an inky black, void of humanity, as he leaped at us, attacking with monstrous ferocity. Blood painted the walls as we fought for our lives, our once cherished home now a theater of unimaginable horror. With adrenaline-fueled strength, Samantha and I escaped, our hearts racing, and our bodies slashed and torn. The echoes of our cursed son's unhinged laughter haunted our every step as we sought refuge. Our family was forever marred by the nightmare of that night, the memory of our son's demonic grin seared into our minds. Condemned to live in ceaseless terror, we could never escape the evil that had shattered our lives. Years passed, and the town grew darker, its once vibrant community now gripped by fear and superstition. The cursed house lay abandoned, a grim reminder of the suffering that had befallen us. Whispers of tormented souls spread like a contagion, infecting the town with stories of families that had fallen prey to the insidious curse. And the laughter of a twisted, grinning boy reverberated through the inky darkness, a harrowing reminder of the vile malevolence that lay in wait, hungry for its next victim. On nights devoid of moonlight, as the fog slithered through the town like a venomous serpent, the air grew thick with the chilling murmurs of ghostly apparitions, and the spine-tingling cackles of the damned. No one dared to venture near the accursed house, terror gripping their hearts, fearing the evil that had consumed Ethan would sink its malevolent claws into them as well. As the years crawled by, the once bustling town decayed into a wretched husk, haunted by the memory of the cursed house, and the horrors that had taken place within. The townsfolk had resigned themselves to a life of misery, knowing that they could never escape the curse that had taken hold of their town. One day, Samantha and I decided to return to the town in search of closure. We had been living a life of constant fear, and we couldn't bear the torment any longer. The town was just as we remembered, a decaying shadow of its former self. But we were determined to face our demons and find a way to save our son, if not for him, then for ourselves. As we walked through the town, we stumbled upon a stranger. She was a young woman with piercing blue eyes and hair as black as night. She had heard of the cursed house and was determined to break the curse once and for all. The townsfolk watched with bated breath as she made her way towards the house, carrying with her an ancient book that was said to contain the key to breaking the curse. As she entered the house, the air grew thick with malevolent energy, but the young woman was undeterred. She opened the book and began to chant, her voice growing louder and more confident with each passing moment. Suddenly, the air in the house grew still, and a bright light filled the room. When the light faded, the young woman was standing in the center of the room, the ancient book clasped tightly in her hand. The curse had been broken. The townsfolk emerged from their homes, their faces alight with hope for the first time in years. They looked towards the sky and saw that the sun was shining for the first time in what felt like an eternity. The birds were singing, and the trees rustled in the gentle breeze. It was as if the curse had never existed. Samantha and I approached the house, cautiously optimistic that our nightmare was finally over. As we entered, we saw the young woman standing triumphantly, a beacon of hope in the darkness that had consumed our lives. But as we looked closer, we realized that something was not quite right. Her eyes had turned an inky black, and a sinister grin had spread across her face. It was the same grin that had haunted our son and tormented our dreams. In an instant, we realized that the curse had not been broken after all. It had merely found a new host. The young woman's body convulsed, and she let out a blood-curdling scream that sent the townsfolk running for their lives. As they fled, we could hear the young woman's laughter echoing through the town, a reminder that the curse was still very much alive. We knew we couldn't leave our son behind, even in his monstrous form. As we approached the cursed house, we found Ethan, his twisted grin still present, but now filled with confusion and fear. The curse that had claimed him was weakened, its power transferred to the young woman. Together, Samantha and I vowed to dedicate our lives to finding a way to truly break the curse and free our son from its malevolent grasp. We left the town, knowing that the fight was far from over, but fueled by a newfound determination to save our family. As we walked away from the cursed house and the town that had been our home, we knew that our lives would never be the same. But our love for our son and our unwavering hope drove us onward, knowing that somewhere out there was the key to ending the nightmare that had consumed us. We traveled the world, searching for answers and seeking out experts in the supernatural. We studied ancient texts, consulted with renowned occultists, and delved into the darkest corners of the mystical arts. The sinister grin that had once held our son captive never left his face, but we could see that a part of him, the real Ethan, was still there deep within. Years passed, and our journey led us to a remote monastery hidden high in the mountains. There, we met a wise old monk who was said to possess the knowledge to banish even the most powerful curses. He listened intently to our story and, with a grave expression, agreed to help us. Under the guidance of the monk, we underwent a rigorous purification process, preparing our minds and bodies for the ritual that would finally break the curse. When the time came, we gathered in the monastery's sacred chamber, surrounded by flickering candles and ancient relics. The monk began to chant in a language long forgotten, his voice rising and falling in rhythm with the howling wind outside. As the ritual intensified, a brilliant light engulfed Ethan, and the air crackled with energy. The sinister grin that had tormented him for so long began to fade, and as it vanished, we could see our son's true face once more. The curse had been lifted. Overwhelmed with joy, we embraced Ethan, tears streaming down our faces. The weight of our years-long ordeal was finally lifted, and we could finally be a family again. We expressed our deepest gratitude to the wise old monk, who merely smiled and told us that our love for our son had been the key to breaking the curse all along. As we left the monastery, we knew that our lives would be forever changed. The dark cloud that had hung over us for so long had finally been dispelled, and we were free to rebuild our lives and reclaim the happiness that had been stolen from us. We returned to our town, which had slowly begun to heal in our absence. The sun shone brightly, and the laughter of children filled the streets once more. The once abandoned houses were now filled with families who had heard of the curse's end and had returned to their homes. Our family was whole again, and the nightmare that had haunted us was finally over. We dedicated our lives to helping others who were facing similar darkness, using our newfound knowledge and experience to guide them through their own battles with the supernatural. The town, once a place of fear and despair, became a symbol of hope and resilience. And as for the cursed house, it was torn down and replaced with a beautiful garden, a testament to the power of love and the triumph of light over darkness. Together, we faced the shadows and emerged victorious, our love and determination stronger than any curse or darkness that dared to challenge us. As we moved forward, hand in hand, we knew that whatever life had in store for us, we would face it together, as a family united by love and an unbreakable bond. And as the sun set over the town, our hearts swelled with hope, for we had reclaimed our lives, and the darkness had been vanquished. We knew that the memories of the nightmare that had haunted us would never fade completely, but we were ready to face whatever came our way, armed with the knowledge that our love for each other was the most powerful weapon of all. My family and I settled back into our lives, cautiously optimistic that the nightmare was finally behind us. Yet, something gnawed at me, an inexplicable unease that I couldn't quite shake. Determined to make sense of what we had experienced, I decided to write our story, hoping that sharing it might help others who were facing similar darkness. As I typed the final words, recounting our triumph over the curse, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I hesitated, my fingers hovering above the keyboard, as a chill ran down my spine. Suddenly, the room grew colder, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I glanced up at my computer screen and caught my reflection in the dark glassy surface. My heart pounded in my chest as I saw it. The twisted grin that had once tormented my son was now etched across my own face. Number 3. The 1940s radio says my wife will kill me. My life had always been rather unremarkable. I had a loving wife, a decent job, and a cozy home. It was, by all accounts, a normal existence. That is, until I stumbled upon the radio. I had been wandering through a local antique store when the worn, rusted hulk of a radio caught my eye. It was a large, dusty thing from the 1940s, with a weathered wooden frame and a dial that seemed frozen in time. Despite its rough appearance, I felt an inexplicable pull towards it. I purchased the radio on a whim, thinking it would make a nice conversation piece for our living room. When I brought the radio home, my wife, Emma, was initially unimpressed. She didn't share my enthusiasm for old relics, and was worried about the space it would take up. I assured her it was just a harmless decoration, and, begrudgingly, she agreed to let it stay. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, I found myself drawn to the radio once more. I fiddled with the rusted knobs, not expecting any sound to emerge from the ancient device. To my surprise, the radio crackled to life, and a low, eerie static filled the room. As I continued to twist the dial, the static began to give way to a voice. It was a man's voice, deep, slow, and unnervingly calm. The voice seemed to be reading from a script, like a radio drama from a bygone era. But the words it spoke chilled me to the bone. Your wife, Emma, plans to kill you. She has been plotting for months, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. You must act before she does end her life, or she will end yours. My blood ran cold. The idea of Emma wanting to kill me was preposterous. We had our disagreements, sure, but we loved each other. I tried to dismiss the voice as a cruel prank or a bizarre coincidence, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was something more. Over the next few days, I began to notice subtle changes in Emma's behavior. She seemed distant, her smile strained, her eyes cold and calculating. Each time I caught her staring at me, I couldn't help but wonder if the radio's sinister message was true. My paranoia grew, and I found myself returning to the radio each night, listening to the same chilling warning. The voice was relentless, insisting that I had to act if I wanted to survive. It whispered dark suggestions into my ear, urging me to kill Emma before she could make her move. I wrestled with the idea, my mind torn between my love for my wife and the terror instilled by the radio's prophecy. The thought of taking Emma's life was monstrous, but the fear that she might take mine first was overpowering. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself succumbing to the radio's influence. I began to plan, to consider the most efficient and discreet way to carry out the unthinkable act. Each time I looked at Emma, I no longer saw the woman I loved, I saw the threat she had become. My life had become a living nightmare, haunted by the constant hum of the radio, and the ever-present fear of my own impending death. And as the fateful night approached, when I would finally decide whether to heed the radio's warning, I couldn't help but wonder, was I about to become a murderer, or was I merely a pawn in some twisted game? The dark place is crawling in my brain. We hope you enjoyed these tales of horror and the macabre. Remember, there's always more to explore in the shadows. If you want to stay up to date on our latest videos, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.